Welcome to Dolani's Corner. My name is Dolani Ajanaku. I'm a third-year psychiatry resident, and welcome back to the channel. For everybody that's been here before, thank you for coming back. I hope you subscribed, I hope you liked, I hope you shared, and I hope you reposted. And to everyone that's new, welcome, welcome, welcome. We love every additional person to this family. Please refer to the introductory video for more details about what we're talking about, what I'm about, why am I providing this information, and basically what the goal of this channel is, right? So welcome, we're all one big family. Please, before anything, subscribe, okay? Subscribe, like it, post, comment. I also have an Instagram, I have a Facebook, and I have a Twitter. So please reach out. All of that is going to be down here, and also it's going to be in the description box. So today is our first real official conversation about mental health and all the other mental illnesses included in. And so welcome. So before we talk about anxiety, it's important to be able to separate mental health and mental illness. So let's try to make it like really simple. Your mental health is kind of similar to what your physical health. You go to the doctor, or you're supposed to. Half of us don't, but you should. You go to your doctor for your yearly checkup. Your yearly body checkup, what's going on? Is there anything in my body that I should be aware of, that I should pay more attention to? And during that visit, they'll let you know, okay, things are still looking normal, or hey, we found something that's kind of like out of the ordinary that we need to be putting a little bit more attention on. Your mental health is a lifetime thing. Your mental well-being is a very lifetime journey. It's something that was with you from childhood. It's something that will be with you to the day you die. It's something that you're going to be more aware of as you probably get older. And that's basically your social well-being, your emotional well-being, your psychological well-being. Mental illness, on the other hand, is conditions that are present, right? Kind of like for physical health, people that have diabetes, they have an actual medical illness that's now affecting the normal way that their body's supposed to be, like reacting to sugars and things like that. Mental illness, kind of some things like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, substance use, a history of like a traumatic event happening, causing like Ptsd. These are things that are now affecting your mental well-being. And a lot of these things, honestly, is just a matter of knowing it exists, finding the right kind of treatment, looking for help. And a lot of things are actually treatable. But anxiety, there are medications for it. Depression, there are medications for it. There's therapy. There are other resources present. So that's really the difference. Mental health is your journey through life, and it will be with you forever. And that's your well-being, your mental well-being, right? And your mental illness is conditions that are not present. So for people, is it possible for somebody to have good mental health, like good mental well-being, good social well-being, emotional well-being, and now have periods in their life that, hey, there's a mental illness that is not present? Yes, it's possible. It's possible for you to have a good level of well-being, and now something happened and you have depression, something happened, you have anxiety, and it's for a period of time, it's more temporary, and being able to solve that and you move on. So mental illness does not really define people as a whole. So please, let me just put this there, right? Let's not say, she has anxiety, he has anxiety, and that's all they are, right? That's all their being is. People are more than their mental illness. Let's stop, let's try and destigmatize things. Mental illness exists, but there are more than that. People are people. People have other things to be able to contribute to society. Mental health is just as, if honestly not more important than physical health. It's everything. It's really, your mind is so beautiful, your mind is so amazing, and protecting that is so important. Kind of like the same way I feel like, I have to be healthy, I have to be physically fit, I have to watch so many different levels, and we don't pay enough attention to, hey, do I have peace of mind? Am I in a good space? Am I protecting my mind? And so many things are contributing to mental health. There's so many different modules, there's so many different ways of explaining it, because I think a lot of people, and a lot of psychiatrists, a lot of people that are involved in psychology, a lot of people that we're really very attentive to just the human being. everybody has tried to explain and try to understand mental health and what contributes to it. And honestly, let's just first start from here. There's no such thing as average mental health, right? If you're average when it comes to mental health, it's not that good. The goal is to be above average, because what's included in the average is healthy and also unhealthy mental health. And given the fact that, you know, there's been so much stigma basically meaning that like people have made it like so negative to discuss, like, you know, psychiatry and mental health issues, mental illness, seek help and things like that. So the average of what is considered, oh, you have an average mental health, I don't even know what that really is, but the goal is to have a good mental health. And honestly, does that mean that, like, am I at the good, you know, level of mental health? No, most likely not. I actually honestly don't think I am. I think a lot of people aren't. I think a lot of people are probably not even average. So we're all in this struggle together, right? So that means that there are things to work on, but does that mean that there's something innately wrong with you? Does that mean that at your core you're messed up? No. That just means that we have something that we have to attain, like kind of look up to. And that means, honestly, half of us need to be in therapy. Let's just all sign up for therapy because it's important. We have so many things, and I'm going to delve into, like, you know, the things that contribute to mental health, but a lot of people, it's rare to even achieve this good mental health unless you're really open and you're honest about your struggles. And I think that's something that we all have to do, myself and you included, right? So it's me that I'm talking to you doesn't mean that I don't have my struggles. It doesn't mean that, like, you know, I'm there. It just means that I'm able to see these things, and we're going to call it to everybody's attention, and we're going to work towards being a better us, towards having good mental health, towards being able to be open and free about discussing everything, anxiety, depression, all these things. So identical twins, they typically share a lot of like genetic traits because they're identical. They're one egg that kind of split apart. And we do realize that in identical twins, when you separate them and have them live in very different environments, they still are almost emotionally similar in certain ways. So that goes to show you that there is a genetic component to your well-being. There is a genetic component to your mental health. And yes, I know a lot of us are like, yeah, I didn't pick my parents, I'm just here. Low-key, they didn't pick you either. But I'm not even gonna go into that table to be shaken. But we are where we are who we are, and there is a genetic component to mental health, right? So outside of, you know, just trying to have above average mental health, which we're all still struggling with, the other component of mental health is maturity, right? So given that, like, you know, as time goes on, time is a very beautiful concept. As time goes on, a physical healthy 70-year-old has probably better mental health than a 30-year-old, because that's just the concept of time, right? And these are just different explanations. Does that mean that, you know, this is like had and 120% accurate? Probably not. Like, we're all just kind of trying to figure out ways to better define it. And this concept of the older you are, the more mature you are, the more your brain synapses. So there's a biological component to this, right? So the more like your brain pathways, your neural pathways, right? For people who are more scientifically minded, there's more maturity in it. There's more development there. So a 70-year-old man has more mental health maturity than a 30-year-old man, or a 30-year-old woman versus a 70-year-old woman. And that's just like the concept of time. And that's also partially because of like the stages of time. And this is assuming that, now before I go into the stages, I'll put it out here. This is not something that everybody is going to reach at a specific age. There are age groups as to when you should reach these things. And that doesn't mean that, you know, everybody's going to go to follow these orders. Everybody's slightly different. But in the beginning, right? So my teenagers, as a teenager, there's a concept of identity. Whew, the identity crisis is a thing. I was a teenager. I've been there. We've all been there. And the concept of trying to figure out, who are you? What do you believe in? What are you doing? What do you think you are? How do you perceive yourself? Identity. It's big. And even there's a lot of adults that really haven't figured out their identities yet, and that causes like a completely different stressor. But as a teenager, you really sit there and you're just kind of like, yo, who am I? What do I believe in? What do I want? And this is like, and that's a normal behavior at that phase, trying to figure out your identity. And then after your identity, we kind of make it past that to figure out, okay, this is me. you know, my name is Dolani, like this is Dolani, this is what she likes, this is who she is. And then once she hit like this young adulthood stage, it's the concept of intimacy, and that is relationship forming. It may not exactly be romantic relationships, but a lot of us liken it to romantic relationships. Sometimes it's just relationship, just having that intimacy with, it could sometimes even be asexual, meaning that these aren't things that are like romantically driven, but just having that partnership, just being able to develop these connections with another individual or another community. So it's not just even just one person. Sometimes it's just being in a community where you feel like you've been able to develop this intimacy with them. And then around that same age is the concept of career. We're all in this phase right now, and I'm there too with you. So like my age group bracket, we're here. The teenagers, you're going through your identity. I've kind of went past the identity, and you know, we're still trying to work that out to a certain extent for some people. But we're in this like intimacy and this career consolidation stage. Do I have a job or do I have a career? What's the future looking like? Did I achieve something? Can I call who am I? Like, you know, I'm a doctor, so that's a career to a certain extent. For some people, it's a job. And honestly, we put too much pressure on ourselves, because a career can also honestly be your wife and your mother. That's fine. A career could be your entrepreneur. A career can also be your figuring it out. So this is like that young adult phase where you're trying to figure out intimacy and also trying to figure out career. And then you move on and you get to like generativity, basically trying to look at the next generation. So once you figure out the career, once you figure out the intimacy, it's mentorship. Like, you know, you're trying to kind of leave a legacy to a certain extent. Who can I mentor? And this is more of like our parents' generation or my parents' generation, right? Like maybe the 50s, I want to say. Mentoring, because you're almost preparing for that late adult stage. Because the thing about life is, once you make it, for the people that make it to the late adult stage, they experience a lot of losses. People die, their friends die, they become a little bit lonely. And what they also sometimes have to hold on to is the concept of, did I mentor? Did I make a change in the generation? What is the generation behind me? How are they going to perceive my life? So the generativity stage is really where, after you've gotten the identity, you've got the career, you've got the intimacy, it's the giving back stage. It's the nurturing the generation behind you. And then at the end of the day, when you're getting closer to death, because when there's life, there will be death, it's the concept of integrity. So you see a lot of, and that's why like the concept of like mental health is maturity. The way a 70-year-old man who's went through life will process life's issues, will process mental health issues, is different, usually, from that of a teenager, from that of somebody that's in their mid-20s or 30s, because they've just went through multiple phases of life and they see things completely different, and they're at a point in their life where it's just more or less making sure that they have something to leave behind, that they have a legacy of some sort. So as time goes on, your mental health should mature. We're all maturing at different stages. It doesn't have to be, because listen, I'm Nigerian, and the concept of like the cultural stresses, you should be married at this time, you should have a career by this time, you should be making this much money at this time, you should be out of your parents' house by this time. We give each other like too much, like, you know, hard deadlines. But I think it's very important to really understand that there are phases in life and we're all going through it, and it's okay if your age groups are a little bit more ahead in those phases than you are. All that typically really means is you're on your own time. We're all on our own time, and we're all eventually going to get there, and in different ways and different routes, and that's fine. Just being able to understand that, like, you know, you're not going to go through life the same way your friends may be. That's perfectly fine. It's okay. We need to make that more acceptable. Mental health is also self-well-being, right? And that is the absence of misery for some people. It's also the presence of contentment. Are you content? Let's ask that question. Are you content with yourself? Are you content with your being? Are you content with where you are right now? Are you content with who you are with? Are you content with life in general? And for a lot of us, that's no. For other people, that's yes. For other people, that's maybe. And maybe I need a little extra. You were fine. So part of the huge and big negative effects on social well-being, psychological well-being, emotional well-being is comparison. Comparison. And honestly, I think back in the day before social media, it used to just be like, oh, you look at your neighbor, you look at the person across the street. Now we're comparing ourselves to everybody. If they got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything you can see, you're comparing yourself. And that has made anxiety so much worse. It's made depression so much worse. And those are things that we need to pay attention to. So I'm not saying that don't be ambitious. Don't get me wrong. Be ambitious, be driven, be goal directed, be everything that you can be and better. But if that's coming from a place where you're comparing yourself, then reassess yourself. Kind of sit back and really think, is this me, or is it that I'm trying to be better than this person? Is it that I'm really chasing purpose, or I'm trying to make sure that I'm one step ahead? Because all of these play a very, 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 very big role in our well-being. And that's basically your mental health. So let's leave that aside, because I feel like we're shaking multiple tables today. Mental health is also your resilience, because the reality is life happens, life will happen, things will happen unexpectedly. Medical conditions that you never thought you could possibly have, or that your loved ones could possibly have, will happen. Money leaves, people lose jobs, people lose things in life. Depressions, they happen. Resilience and mental health is so big, because when your mental health is in good state, you're able to adjust, you're able to adapt, you're able to be exactly that, resilient. You're able to just be like, okay, this is happening right now, but I'll be fine. I'll be able to make it through this. I have the coping skills, not the maladaptive one that we'll eventually talk about, but good coping skills to help me get through this life situation. Because part of making it through life is really just absorbing the good and bad and going with the flow. Healthy coping skills, like many people will say, there are many coping skills that we all kind of adopt as human beings as we get older, as you learn and you see things. And lots of people, their coping skills are maladaptive, which is basically, and for some people is even dangerous, and substance use and like a whole bunch of other stuff. But there are some healthy ones, and of course the one I love the most is humor. You gotta laugh at life, laugh at things happening. And humor, you have to time it appropriately. And humor is not necessarily just like ignoring the situation, it's not necessarily shying away from the situation, it's not trying to avoid the situation, it's letting the situation happen, accepting that, you know, something happened, I feel a certain way, but you know what, I'm not going to take life too seriously, because if you do, you cannot come and kill yourself. Laugh, take a time, take a step back and just laugh a little bit and just let it go. Another component is altruism, and that is doing something for someone else that they would want done to them. It's two parts. You're doing it for someone, so you're giving out, you're going out of your way, and it should be something that they will also like. It's not something that like you're doing for somebody and you know they don't enjoy it, or you don't think that they're going to enjoy it, or it's going to hurt them. So it's just, altruism is doing something for someone, they're also going to like it. Lots of altruism you find in like AA meetings, which is Alcoholic Anonymous, and that's basically like there's some people that like, you know, they have these sponsorships where they have a mentor, somebody that's looking out for them. So that's their way of giving back, is altruism. They're looking out for somebody in a way that the other person would like. Another component is suppression. Suppression and suppression and repression are two different things. Repression is you're ignoring the feelings that you're feeling. Suppression is you're acknowledging how you're feeling. So for example, somebody pissed me off. I'm gonna accept that I'm angry and I'm pissed off, but I'm not going to act out as extreme as I should be. So you piss me off, you said something that makes me want to punch in your face. All right, cool, that emotion is there. But then instead of punching your face or yelling at you, I stand there or I sit down or I walk away and I'm like counting from 1 to 10 just to kind of like de-escalate the situation. I'm not focusing on like how extreme the emotion is. Repression is you piss me off, but I'm ignoring it. I'm acting like it never happens. I'm just smiling and moving on. Suppression is good. It's a healthy way of coping. It's acknowledging that something happened, but not trying to focus too much on it, not trying to give it that much energy, not trying to give it that much power. Repression is dangerous because yes, you're gonna do it once and it's gonna work. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, everybody's different, right? And there'll be that one small thing. Somebody will be looking at you like, what I said is not that big of a deal. Why are you so explosive about it? But that's because all you did was repress for so long that it gets to a point where you can't keep it in that long any longer. And then poof, you're like a time bomb waiting to happen. And we don't want that. We want you to be able to suppress. We want you to be able to laugh at life. We want you to be able to kind of give back, altruism. Sublimation is another thing. And sublimation is basically you're aware that something is making you feel uncomfortable, or you're aware that you have some impulses that are not appropriate. So you have this negative energy with you. So instead of like acting that negative way, you channel it to something more positive. So it's once again something that's very, very basic in all of these is you're not ignoring the emotions that you're feeling. You're just figuring out a way to change them. You're figuring out a way to redirect them. And then the last one, honestly, is just anticipation. And that is, once again, life happens, right? And that is being able to see the future to a certain extent, being able to understand that, for example, somebody that has leukemia or somebody whose family is dealing with a terminal illness, the end is here, the end is near, and just being able to prepare. So not necessarily ignoring the situation at hand, but being able to start preparing. And that kind of starts us into anxiety a little bit. So I'll give you an example of anxiety. So before somebody has a surgical procedure, or maybe even like let's just use surgical procedure. Having some level of anxiety helps you prepare for it. It's a moderate level. It's not one where like you're having like it's extreme and you're thinking nothing about death, right? And having that good level of anxiety kind of prepares you for, okay, I'm going into surgery. And then you're going to be more prepared for like the surgical procedure and then afterwards. So these are all the many things of mental health. And I know that it took so much time. I'm sorry for boring you a little bit. But it's important to talk about this thing. So how can I talk about mental health without talking about the multiple different ways that, what contributes to your mental health, what helps it, what should you be focused on? So far we know mental health versus mental illness. And that kind of gives us the nice transition into anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is exactly what it sounds like. You felt it, I felt it, we all know what it feels like. Anxiety is normal in certain cases, right? So I had a little anxiety filming this right now. That's fine. I had some anxiety before an exam. That's okay. So anxiety is also different from fear. Fear is there's a danger, you see it, and you have a natural response to it. So I don't like snakes. I don't like anything that has to do with snakes. I see a snake, I'm afraid. I want to run. That's fear. It's not necessarily anxiety. Anxiety is having this emotional response to something that's not here yet. It's something that could be here. It's something that may be coming soon, but it's not here yet. And that's what anxiety. And for anxiety, it's that nausea, it's that feeling like your throat is like maybe a little close. There's a knot in your throat. So for some people, they vomit a little bit. For some people, they need to go to the bathroom. For some people, they get really sweaty. Is your heart beating really fast? And these aren't things that like they're caused by an underlying medical illness. So it's not like you're having a heart attack. It's not like you're having like really actual like medical conditions that will cause you to be having a fast heartbeat. So these are things that you're aware that you're nervous. You're scared about something. And then your body is telling you also, hey, there's something going on. I'm nervous, I'm sweating, my heart is beating fast, my throat is kind of feeling all lumpy and closed up, and I want to throw up, or I want to use a bathroom, I want to go do number 2. That's all anxiety. And that's fine, because we've all experienced it at one point in our lives. But anxiety disorder is something completely different. Anxiety disorder is something that's very maladaptive. It's a very exaggerated response to a situation. It's pathological. It's not something that, I just feel regular anxiety and then it comes and goes away. And all the time, there's a duration to all of these things. How long has it been lasting? What triggers it? What's been going on? So anxiety disorder is a big world, guys. There's so many things that can cause anxiety. There's so many different names and tags that we can put on anxiety. There's general anxiety disorder. There's social anxiety disorder. There is phobias, which is basically like fears of specific things. There is obsessive compulsive disorder, which is not really like anxiety, but there are similar things. Then there's PTSD, right? PTSD is big, and I would like to put this here that like the concept of child abuse and not taking child abuse so seriously, especially child sexual abuse, is really, really amazing to me for some people, because having a history of child sexual abuse puts you at a lifetime risk of PTSD. So a child that was sexually assaulted as a child, right? For the rest of their life, they have an increased risk of developing PTSD. That's big. Because when we talk about PTSD, you really understand that like these are really, really huge disorders and they affect people in so many different ways. So why does anxiety matter? There's childhood anxiety, there's like adult anxiety, right? Childhood also includes like my adolescents and my teenagers. There's adult anxiety, there is older age anxiety. And these things are very, very important because one, they affect a lot of things. Children that have anxiety, they have a social impact. It affects their career goals in life. It affects almost to a certain extent, like what kind of career goals that they may have in life. It affects their social interactions. It affects their social experiences. Adults, it affects also their social experiences as well, and also career. So these are very important things to pay attention to because these are things that are going to affect your relationship. They'll affect your work. And as previously said, and that's why I spend so much time on describing mental health, is that we're relational beings. As much as some people like to say that, like, I don't like people, I don't need people, I don't this, that, and the third, you need relationships. You may not need a lot of relationships, but relationships are important. So anxieties affect that. It affects your social interaction, it affects your job, it affects your career goals, it affects your being. And so it's important to talk about it. And it's not something that's uncommon. Statistics will show us that 1 in 5 United States adults have experienced one of the different kind of anxiety disorders. That's a lot. So we're gonna break it down to numbers. That means if 10 people were in a room, right? There's a higher likelihood that 2 people in that room have experienced a type of anxiety disorder before. And I dare to say that that's an underestimated number. So, So that means that anxiety is affecting a lot of people and we need to do better. So, and that's what the next couple of videos will talk about. It'll talk about the different anxiety disorders. It'll talk about the treatments, and I'll give you a snippet, and I'll always say this in every single video. It's therapy and medication. We all need therapy. Figuring out the right therapist, finding the right therapist for you. So there are different types of therapy modalities, which is there's CBT, there's psychodynamic, there's play therapy, there's talk therapy. So figuring out the right therapy for like the situation is perfect. Having the right therapist is also an important thing. So that's very, 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 very crucial. I need therapy, y'all. And a lot of people do too. Medications also play a role. And then we're going to talk about so many things about anxieties and the ways that we can be better adults, because a lot of us, we're a product of our environment, we're a product of our families, we're a product of our genetics, we're a product of life happening. So if we can be better adults, we can be better as parents, we can be better as mentors, we can be better at helping the younger generation. And then hopefully for the younger generation hearing this, and it's not like younger generation, but like we can't be relatable, bruv. I'm not that much older than y'all. But you can be better teenagers, you can be better children, and you could be, our hope is just to have this healthier mental well-being. So thanks, subscribe, like, follow, DM. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you were able to learn something. I hope that you were able to relate a little bit. Please subscribe, come back, share, like, DM me. The Instagram page, please follow it, DM. I may not respond immediately, but I'll eventually get to it. If you have your own personal experience that you want to share, right? I'll obviously make sure that your name is not included. It's completely de-identified, meaning that it's not, I'm not going to include like personal things that would make people know that it is you. But if you do want to share your experience, because I think part of this community is to really emphasize that we're not alone. There's a lot of people going through this, and we need to normalize finding help and being expressive about this. So if you want to be a lot more collaborative and you feel comfortable sharing your private informations and experiences with me, please DM me. Please comment, like, give me feedback, what you want us to focus on, what you want us to talk about, what more would you like. I'm here for it. I'm down for it. The goal here is so that we can all be better. And the only way that I can know what you need is if you tell me, right? So I'll give you information and then you give me feedback. So thank you. I appreciate it. I love it. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that you're tuning in. So like, share, repost.